How's it going? My name is Max, and this is the Republic of Philosophy. And the other day, I was reading Aristotle's Metaphysics, the Hugh Lawson Tancred translation by Penguin, and we did the book Alpha. So, book Alpha, Alpha 1, and today I'm going to read Alpha 2. Aristotle has indicated that wisdom, the highest science, which is the object of philosophy, is a science of causes and principles. In this second chapter, he spells out that the causes and principles studied by philosophy are the most fundamental and valuable. He feels that this characterization of wisdom is supported by the received opinion, always an important consideration for Aristotle, which assigns to the wise man knowledge of universal and inaccessible truths, knowledge of superior exactitude, and the ability to teach others by dint of having a grasp of the supreme and supremely useless principles of the world. The study of philosophy holds out the promise of making sense of the world in a more profound way than through any other science. It has always been accepted, albeit vaguely, that such an understanding of the world is possible. But it is only now that we are on the sure way to acquiring it. Philosophy, so characterized, has a special relationship with the divine. On the one hand, divinity is clearly a primary principle of the world, and so itself falls in the domain of philosophy. Indeed, there are points in the work in which Aristotle seems to come close to equating philosophy with theology. On the other hand, the practice of philosophy, over the course of a lifetime, has an ennobling effect on the philosopher, such that he or she is brought as close as possible to a divine state. We share some fragment of the divine nature, which through philosophy we can nourish and promote. This conception of philosophy as a liberation from the complexities of our existence is one that Aristotle supports with a few brief but often quoted comments on the origins of philosophy, in a sense of wonder or amazement at the arrangement of the world. The history of philosophy is the history of the gradual, progressive abstraction of this sense of wonder. Now to Aristotle. But now, since it is this knowledge that we are seeking, we must consider the following point. Of what kind of principles and of what kind of causes is wisdom the knowledge? Indeed, if one were to take the assumption that we have concerning the wise man, perhaps from this the answer would become clear. Our assumptions are then, first, the wise man knows everything in the appropriate way, not having knowledge of these subjects at the level of particulars. Secondly, that the man who is able to know difficult things and not easy for a man to know, this is the wise man. For sense perception is common to all men, and so easy and not wise at all. Thirdly, that the man who is more accurate and more capable of teaching the causes is wiser in connection with every sort of knowledge. Fourthly, that of forms of knowledge, that which in chosen for itself and for the sake of knowledge is wisdom more than that which is chosen for its results. And the directive science is wisdom more than that which subverts it. For the wise man should not be instructed, but should instruct. And it is not he who should obey another, but rather the less wise should obey him. These then are the kind and number of assumptions that we have about wisdom and the wise. And of these we think that it is necessary that the knowledge of everything belongs especially to the man who has universal knowledge. For this man, in a way, knows all the subjects, and more or less also the hardest for men to know. Those are the most general, for these are furthest removed from the senses. And the most exact of the sciences are those that are connected, particularly with primary things. For those which are from fewer things, more exact than those which are said by addition, as arithmetic is more exact than geometry. And it is also the case that theoretical knowledge is more capable of teaching the causes, for it is those who give the cause in connection with each thing that can teach, and knowledge and science for their own sake belong especially to the knowledge of that which is especially known. For the man who chooses to know for its own sake will especially choose the most extreme form of knowledge, and this is the knowledge of the most known thing. 982b. And the things that are most known are the primary things and the causes. For it is through them and from them that the other things are known, and not the latter through the underlying things. And the most fundamental of the sciences, more fundamental than that which subverts it, it is that which discerns from what end each thing must be done. And this is the good for each thing, and in general the best in all natures. From everything that has been said, then, the name that we are seeking falls to the same science. For this science must be theoretical of the primary principles and causes. And indeed, the good and the forsake of what are one of the causes. But it is clear that this science is not productive also from the early history of philosophy. For it was because of wonder that men, both now and originally, began to philosophize. To begin with, they wondered at those puzzles that were to hand, such as about the affections of the moon and events connected with the sun and the stars, and about the origins of the universe. And the man who is puzzled and amazed is thought to be ignorant. Hence, the lover of stories is, in a way, a lover of wisdom, since a story is composed of wonders. And so, if men indeed began to philosophize to escape ignorance, it is clear that they pursued science for the sake of knowledge and not for any utility. And events bear this out. For when more or less all the necessary sciences existed, and also those connected with leisure and lifestyle, this kind of understanding began to be sought after. So it is clear that we seek it for no other use, but rather, as we say, as a free man is for himself and not for another. So is this science the only one of the sciences that is free, for it alone exists for its own sake. And for this reason, it is with justice, and its acquisition would not be thought to be human. For in many ways, the nature of man is enslaved. Thus, according to Simonides, only a god might have this boon, and a man might not be thought worthy to seek out knowledge itself. 983a. And if indeed the poets have a point, and it is a divine thing to be envious, it would accordingly be reasonable that all the outstanding should suffer. But in fact, it is not divine to envy, but rather, as in the proverb, many are the lies of the seers. And it is also necessary to think another skill of more worth than this one. For that which is most divine is also most worthy. And such a science would be alone in two ways. For it would be that which a god would most choose. That is the one of the sciences that is divine, if indeed any of them is divine. And this happens to be alone in both of these ways. For God is thought to be among the causes of all things, and to be a kind of principle. And also God would have such knowledge either exclusively or mainly. So all sciences are more necessary than this one, and none is better. In a way, however, we must make the acquisition of it the opposite of fundamental inquiries. For as we said, all men began to philosophize from wonder whether it is really so, as with spontaneous natural wonders, such as those of the changes of the sun or the incommensurability of the diameter. For everybody thinks that is amazing, if sometimes cannot be measured exactly. But on the contrary, we must produce the best, according to the proverb, just as with these subjects when there has been learning. For a geometer would be surprised by nothing so much as if the diameter were measurable. We have then said what the nature of the sciences that we are seeking and what the end is at which the search should aim, and the whole method. It's Aristotle Alpha 2, and the next time we'll be reading Aristotle Alpha 3 from book Alpha of the Metaphysics. Take care.